Hello guys, and welcome back to a new episode of Exit or Die, the podcast where we talk to the founders who build, break, rebuild, and still show up the next day. My guest today is Aurimas Bakas, a serial founder with multiple exits under his belt, from Paysolute, acquired by SumUp, to DetectNet, Margard, and Data Logistics Center. He also had for sure some brutal failures, which he says are just as important. Now Aurimas is building Copla, a company that bridges the gap between cyber compliance and actual operational security. Because, let's be honest, most companies look great on paper, but fall apart the second something real happens. Aurimas, welcome to Exit or Die.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you.
I would say let's get directly into the topic. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. A lot of companies invest in looking secure, not actually being secure. What's broken in how businesses approach cybersecurity today?
Yeah, I think that this is very much common that what you want to get is a ISO certificate, SOC2 certificate, something that helps to prove to your customers, to your stakeholders that you are secure, right? And across the globe, there are a number of what they call the checklist compliance platforms, which help you to do that, like in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, in 4 weeks. Well, you have to understand that it is not really possible to install a proper security system in the company like in 3 weeks, right? So it has now become I call it like an elephant in the room, right? So that basically companies get certified, they get licensed, and but this is just a paper. This is a nice piece of paper, which is you can call it a compliance theater, right? So that basically we say, hey, we have it, and that is nice, but this is very far away from the reality. What is behind that? And I have lately seen a number of customers, a number of founders who come to me and say, look, we got this ISO certificate, which is on paper. Now I want a real one. I want something which is it has something behind it, because not only because I realize that I have not really done a lot. I have just had a customer who got this ISO certificate like in 3 weeks. And I asked, so have you done anything? He says, no, nothing at all. So I said, and do you feel anywhat more secure because of your ISO certificate? The answer was no, I don't. Right. So it's and of course it's empty, right? So, and I think that it's a very important topic, and people are speaking about it across the globe, and which basically leads to the fact that now the buying organizations not only they start to ask for your certification, but once you show them your certification, they have a number of follow-up questions, right? So they say, okay, so show me your last disaster recovery test, show me your business continuity plan and how you have tested it during the last 3 months, etc. So we are forced to get deeper, because they realize that the paper they have just seen, their certificate is just a paper, and that's kind of the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and nowadays cybersecurity is very important. You have seen these firsthand while scaling companies with critical data. So what made you say, we need to build something like Copla?
Yeah. So both me and my partners, we have been building critical core banking infrastructure during the last 15, 20 years, and which resulted in Paysolute, the venture which we exited back in 2021 by selling this to SumUp, one of the bigger European fintech unicorns. And as you can imagine, once you're building critical core banking infrastructure, you deal with a number of financial institutions. All our customers were licensed financial institutions. And we deal not only with them, but also with the regulators. And we saw 6, 7 different regulators across Europe. We had to deal with them as a critical vendor. And during that process, we realized that, be it small or big, mid-size or startup organization, in most cases, I don't say all of them, right? But in many cases, in most cases, we realized that even financial industry entities, they take cyber compliance in a very formal way. They take it, at the documentation level, show this to the regulator, and everyone is kind of happy. But what is behind it? What is actually happening, right? And this is financial industry, right? This is a critical industry. It's the industry that manages our money, our data, a lot of sensitive data, right? So, and this is where, the idea was born, and we started to think, all right, so, well, there has to be some kind of a bridge between the paper compliance and real operational resilience. And world is changing. Well, we have a perfect storm today. Well, the number of cyber attacks is increasing immensely. Losses because of that have increased quite a bit as well. And as a result, well, regulators across Europe and actually across the globe, they started to push, right? And as a result, because of that, we see a number of new security frameworks: Digital Operation Resilience Act focused on the financial industry, NIS2, and a directive focused on a number of critical infrastructure providers, from energy to healthcare, finance to transportation, etc. And we felt that this idea is very much to the point and very much at the right time, and that's exactly why we have been really successful in the last couple of years or so. So, yeah.
Yeah, you already mentioned that Copla is not another compliance checklist tool. So you are focused on the operational readiness. So stress testing systems beyond the audit, right? So walk me through what Copla actually does.
Yeah. So we break compliance into requirements, controls, and most importantly, tasks, right? Because in that security compliance process, well, you don't operate in vacuum. You operate in connection with a technology team, with operational team, with HR team, also the compliance team, right? So basically, and the connection between the security team with all those four teams that I had just mentioned results in a number of things that have to be done in practice and not in paper, right? And that's exactly what we orchestrate. So basically, we kick off tasks, we collect evidences, so we're very much evidence focused, and as a part of that process, we're building what we call the evidence database. So you can think about it as an auditing room, something that could be used at any point in time with your ISO 27001 auditor, with your SOC2 auditor, with your regulatory auditor, internal auditor, external auditor. And that pushes the organization to do something, to do quite a bit, actually, right? Because, well, in order to become resilient, you actually need to do something and not only write on paper, but you have done something.
Yeah, take actions.
Take actions, right? And then, yes, of course, a part of them can be automated, but a part of them, they also have to be done by humans, by people who are actually involved into that process, right? So, and as a part of that process, well, then we get connected those tasks and evidences to the checklist, to the documentation, right? So that you, by implementing those things, you collect data about reality, you build remediation plans, and then based on that data, you prepare company documentation, which visualizes what is actually happening in that company, as opposed to the imaginary world which you describe in the other way around, when you start from documentation as a starting point, right? Because many companies start from documentation as their objective is to get paper compliance in order to show this to their customers, right? So we start from the other end, and it's been a really interesting journey, which is already bearing its fruits.
Yeah. So how do you convince a board that failing a test is actually the best thing that can happen before a breach?
Yeah. Well, I think that in many cases, these days you don't need to convince boards anymore, right? So basically, for example, it's an interesting thing in the financial industry. CISOs, as a part of the Digital Operation Resilience Act, they report to boards now, right? So basically, and in essence, as a chief information security officer, you come to the board and you present your results, be tests, etc., right? So I think that as a security officer, you educate your board and you do multiple tests during the year. Penetration test is done usually once a year, but vulnerability scanning has to be constant. It is done on a daily basis, looking for vulnerabilities and trying to find them and trying to fix them, right? So I think that in most cases you don't need to convince boards anymore, and this is not a big question mark anymore.
Going back to your exits, so you have had multiple exits, but also failures. What did you learn from losing that you never learned from winning?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, sometimes I like to say that I have now had, to me, Copla is story number 11, which means that there have been 10 other stories behind in multiple roles. Well, that's important to understand. As a founder, as an early stage employee, as an investor, as a board member, right? So a number of different roles, and obviously in every journey you learn something. But it was probably those mistakes, and I have had quite a few of them, right? And that's something that people don't like to speak a lot about, right? But I kind of put that on the table. I say, look, well, out of those 10 journeys, 6 or 7 were a failure, and expensive mistakes, expensive to me, expensive to my investors as well, right? And but I think that each of that mistake, they help you to become more resilient. They help you to become more mindful, and then at a certain stage you start playing startup as chess, right? So you start thinking 3-4 steps ahead, and that experience allows you to get in a situation when you are able to do that, right? When you cannot see future, but you can have 2 or 3 or 5 scenarios what that future may actually look like. And so I think that and that's on all types of questions, because in a startup, you as a CEO, as a founder, well, it does not even matter if you're a CEO or not. We'll have a separate story about what it's like being a CEO, but and we can touch on that if we have time. But it's as a founder, well, you have to be able to cover all topics, from funding to operations, from sales to delivery, from customer satisfaction to product implementation and launching. You go through all of these steps, and there is no other way, because nobody will do that. If a founder cannot do that, then nobody else will do that, right? So
yeah, I mean, you exited Paysolute to sum up, DTechNet to Mark Monitor, others as well. So is there a pattern you now see in what makes a company exit ready versus just profitable?
Yeah, it's probably I will say it this way. I have never learned building a profitable company. I have always been building businesses which want to grow, can grow, and by doing that you create value. You find markets, you find those valuable pieces of technology and services which are actually needed by the customers, right? So and that's what I usually focus on. Well, you can focus on a number of things, but by the end of the day, customers, they vote by paying money, right? And you can build, and sometimes you're surprised that you can build something as very simple, but if customers pay money, then you're winning. An interesting pattern is that in all businesses where I succeeded, we started from building something, and then by the end of the day, we succeeded by pivoting and building something else, right? So which obviously shows that there is a very clear pattern that staying hungry, always looking for new things, for things that customers are happy to pay for, things that they're happy to pay more, is the ultimate way to success, and that's kind of the only way that I imagine how you have to build a startup environment.
Mm-hmm. You already mentioned the pivot, and founders often ignore cybersecurity until it's too late. So what do you think? So what's the most dangerous assumption early stage companies make about security?
Yeah. Well, we treat that as an expense and not as a line of investment, which can actually help to build revenue, right? And I think that the most common mistake is that you always get to the stage when suddenly this expense line does not allow you to sell to proper customers, to governmental institutions, and I'm not speaking about even having an incident. Well, usually that's a disaster, right? And it can bring your business down, and you're kind of playing this, as a coin. It might happen, it might not, right? You never know that. But in nowadays world, well, this investment is usually very much related to your sales, because now as a number of pretty much all the cyber compliance frameworks and directives, those regulated and critical infrastructure institutions, they have to understand their third parties, they have to understand their vendors, and they are very much involved in that process. And you cannot be a vendor of a financial institution or an energy company or a transportation company if you don't follow certain practices. So and then as a result, this is very much related to your sales process, and very much related to the actual ways of building businesses. And sometimes you find it, or like sometimes I have customers who come to us and say, well, we need to show something in a week, right? And if you have not been building anything, from the security point of view during the last few years, then it's not that easy to do this, and you need to be really creative in order to do that. But that's very common.
Yeah. So in the last days, I had a talk to an insurance, and we talked about these insurance contracts, and there's also the part of cybersecurity, and the guy of the insurance told me that a lot of companies say, currently we don't need the package of cybersecurity, so we are not in danger. What do you think? So how early is too early to start investing in real security infrastructure?
Yeah, I think that to a large degree it probably depends on the business you are in, and what the risks are, right? So every compliance and security process, it starts from evaluating risks, right? And it is important to understand that you probably cannot handle all risks 100%, right? And that's normal, but there are some risks which can impact your business, and can impact it sooner or later. So I think you evaluate, right? And it's just like when you're building a startup, there are 1,000 things that can go wrong, and you cannot control all of them, right? So the same with cyber risks. Many things can go wrong, but then you focus on certain things that you can actually manage, controls here. Well, it makes sense for your size of an organization, right? So it is very normal that as an organization is growing, we are able to invest into that process more. We are able to give it more attention, and then as a result, we start buying tools for scanning, for testing, for documenting, managing those processes end to end. And of course, if you're 3 people startup, it's or 5 people startup, it is not that easy to do that, right? But as you grow, you become 20, 30 people organization, you start professionalizing yourself, and this is usually one of those things that has to be done.
Mm. So we already talked about the cybersecurity market, that the cyber attacks are really increase in the last 2-3 years, right? Because we have different wars on the globe, and so can you give us maybe some insights? What do you think? So how will the cybersecurity game change in the next 2, 3, 4 years? So what will be change because of all the global hurdles and wars and economic things what are going on?
Yeah. Well, we can think about it now from a few different perspectives. So maybe one experience which I would like to share is, so as I mentioned, together with my partners, we have been building critical core banking infrastructure, right? And of course, we had to fight against attacks. We had a number of them, and 5, 7, 8 years ago, in most cases, we had to fight humans. We had to fight people who sometimes need to sleep, sometimes they need time to eat, sometimes they need time to get rest, right? And you can see that in a very obvious way. These days we are fighting robots, we are fighting AI, right? And they don't need time to sleep and eat and rest, right? And if they want to attack, well, they will do that. And so this is a very, very common scenario, right? So basically, and this is changing the landscape a lot, right? Because you can no longer rely on on 1 or 2 penetration tests which are done during the year. You have to build something which is working 24/7, 365 days a year, and otherwise it becomes really complex to actually take this under control, and I think the pattern will stay the same, right? So that basically AI is certainly changing this landscape to the extent that we don't even know where it will take us, right? And as a result, while building that, this is the right time to start building that foundation, and well, companies which have resources, they are certainly doing that.
Yeah, and AI can definitely help here, but in my thoughts, in the future it will be AI against AI, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah. Let's go to the fastest part of this podcast. So our exit or die rapid fire. So 5 questions from my side, and one word, 1 sentence from your side, only gut answers. Okay?
Let's do that.
Yeah. My number 1 question is, so 1 word that defines your founder journey.
Staying hungry. These are 2 words, but it's all about being hungry.
Yeah. The number 2 would be the most overhyped tech trend in security.
Yeah. Penetration test solves all problems.
The most underrated skill in leadership.
Yeah, staying human, getting connected to your team.
And the last one would be, what would you be building if Copla didn't exist?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because from time, I exited my previous business in 2021, but I still love it a lot. I mean, the whole banking area, the finance area, building infrastructure, I see so many opportunities there. I would probably build Paysolute number 2. Well, it's probably it would need to be something a little bit different because obviously because of all the obligations that we have and we have against our buyer. But it would be in that area. I see so many things which can be done, and this to some degree there's a nostalgia that I really feel very much.
Yeah. Aurimas, great insights, really great journey, and it shows again that success is not coming from one try and then exit the company. So it shows again that building a startup and to be successful needs a lot of learnings, a lot of failures to get to the point where you are currently.
Absolutely.
If you could write just one line across every company's cybersecurity deck tomorrow, what would it say?
Yeah, well, build the bridge. I mean, well, you can focus on a number of things, but by the end of the day, you have the paper part, the checklist part, which is very much needed in every compliance process, and I agree with that. But it's connecting the dots and building bridges to the actual steps. Only that is leading to the resilience, to feeling of safety. So yeah, build that. You can do that in the way that we imagine. You can do that in different ways as well. And yeah, that's the only right way as I see it today.
Mm-hmm. Young founders always look up to successful entrepreneurs, how like you. So, what would be your message to first-time founders or already founders? They have a failure. What would be your message to the young founders outside there?
Well, there will be failures and many, and people, for some reason, we are not, don't want to speak about that a lot, right? And, but that's, the only way to learn. That's the only, and look, well, these are dark moments, right? I mean, it's easy for me to speak now, right? But then I remember some of these days when you are closing your business, when you have to lay off your teams, when you are running out of capital, etc., etc. These are dark days, and, you don't smile down, you don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't.
Exactly.
It's these are complex days, and but that's a part of the puzzle, and that's part of the journey. And if you don't experience that, well, later it's much more complex to achieve something substantial. Well, probably it's true that some people are born to build and create, and some people are born to be a part of an organization and work on things where it's maybe not that stressful and maybe not that intense, etc., etc. And you have to ask yourself, who you are and who you really want to be, and you can test things. But being a founder and especially being a serial founder, well, how many problems there will be and things that you will need to solve. Well, everyone is looking at you. Yeah, but there are people who enjoy that, right? It's complex. Yeah. Well, yesterday, I went to sleep like at 1 a.m. and I said to my wife, I'm so fucking tired, but I'm getting up at 5 a.m. And I know that on that day there will be so many things that I will need to do, and but it empowers me. So yeah, that's part of the journey.
Great, yeah, great insights, great learnings. So I'm sure we could talk many more hours about all these learnings, all the startup stuff. Unfortunately, that's it for this episode of Exit or Die. Big thanks, Aurimas, for showing us why real resilience starts with being honest about what you are not ready for. Thank you so much for being our guest. And my message to all the founders outside there is, if your security strategy fits neatly in a PowerPoint, it probably won't survive the first attack. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.